Hi everybody and welcome to CommanderCritic. This is my second video, and I'd like to start by thanking everybody who watched my first video and liked it and also subscribed to my channel. I really appreciate it. If you haven't watched my first video yet, I encourage you to do so. This channel is dedicated to picking cards that are playable in the Commander format of Magic the Gathering, and I'm going to explain why I either really like the card or I don't like the card. And I encourage you to comment in the comment section and let me know what you think, if you agree with me or disagree with me. I also want to start every video with a story about my experiences playing the game. In the first video, I talked about my first time playing Magic the Gathering. This time I'd like to talk about my very first trade. So back in 1994, we had 3 rarities: common, uncommon, and rare. No mythics, they didn't exist. We valued cards on their rarity and their playability. There was no way to look up a price guide, because cards weren't really worth money back then. The market for Magic the Gathering cards didn't really exist. So we rated cards on how good are they in my deck. So when I started playing, I was drawn to green. I liked the big stompy creatures, and I wanted to swing in and attack for a lot of damage. So a friend of mine showed me that he had pulled a Force of Nature. Big creature, loved it, I needed it for my deck. He was playing red at the time, so I traded him my Gauntlet of Might. They were both rare, so we thought it was a fair trade, 1 for 1. And back in the day, it really was a fair trade, 1 for 1. Nowadays, would never make that deal. No, not that deal, not heard of. But back in the day, we were all encouraged to trade. The cards were customizable. It was no collectible card game, it was customizable card game. And so we were encouraged to make trades. And sometimes between 3 or 4 people, like, I'm going to trade to this guy, and then this person wants to trade for this card, and this person wants to trade for this card, and we just all trade between each other, and we just have a day where we just traded cards and tried to make our decks better. But that's the way we did it back then. And we had to also do it in person, because there was no social media back then to, hey, I'm going to sell you this card, or we're going to trade it this way. It was a different time. But anyways, yeah, I definitely wouldn't make that trade these days, and I just will always remember that first trade I ever made. So I'm going to move on to the second part of my video, and I'm going to talk about a card that I don't like from the Commander format. I'm going to stick with my theme from the last video, and I'm going to choose a non-basic land. But this time it's going to be a cycle of non-basic lands, and I'm going to use one of them to represent my example. So this type is the bounce lands. So when they enter, you have to bounce the land back to your hand, and they also come in tapped. So I'm going to choose Golgari Rock Farm for my example this time. So say you have your opening hand of 7 cards, and you have a really good hand, some really good playables. It's going to take you a few turns to get there. Well, it's horrible, because it's going to slow you down. So you draw your card, you have 8 cards in your hand. You didn't draw a land, you have no 1-drops. You have to play your swamp, because you can't play the Route Farm, because you need a land in play to bounce it in order to play it. So you play your swamp. Now you have 7 cards in your hand. You pass the turn. It goes through the cycle, comes back to you again. You draw a card. It's not a land. It's not a 1-drop. Now you have 8 cards in your hand. So what do? You got to play the Route Farm. So you play it, comes in tapped, and you have to bounce the swamp back to your hand. And guess what? You have 8 cards in your hand again. What does that mean? You must discard. So you have to find one of those really good cards you had in your opening hand, and you have to put it in your graveyard. It really feels bad. It's horrible. So then you pass the turn again, and it goes around in the circle. And finally, on turn 3, you are now caught up to the mana curve. But you've done nothing. So the first 2 turns, your opponents got to do stuff, got to probably play spells, play some creatures. Maybe they swung in at you because you were defenseless. And now you can start playing the game, but you're already two turns behind. That's horrible. Now, even if you have that card and you play it a few turns later, you're still behind. You're taking a turn to play a land that comes in tapped and bouncing another land back to your hand. Whenever I get a precon and it has one of those cards in it, I always take it out and I put even a basic land. Or, so I say even like the shock lands are, I mean, obviously we know that the shock lands are much better. But the lands that come in tapped that give you a life or give you a scry or a surveil, those are also all better because they don't bounce hands back to your hand and you're not forced to discard. And that's the worst thing you can do. So, I don't know. I don't like those cards. I take them out of my decks. I cringe when I see my opponents playing them. That's how I feel. I don't know how you feel about that. Please let me know in the comments and let me know what you think, if you agree or disagree with me. So again, I want to thank you very much for watching, and please go watch the first video if you have not watched it yet. And I ask that you like and subscribe, and if you can, share this video. I'm going to put videos out probably 2 times a week, so I want to keep the content going, and if you subscribe, you'll get notifications as when my videos come up. And also in the comments, if you want to suggest a card for me to go and do a review, let me know. I'll take those into consideration, and I'll look at cards you want me to give my opinion on. But again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.